This video is recorded live on Twitch. Should be a link somewhere. Let me know if you find it. First, I want to talk about the app we're building, which is going to be an app to control Streamlabs. So this is Streamlabs. I don't know if I can show you what the application looks like on my computer, maybe through Google Images. Here's a good example. Oh, that's really blurry. That's a terrible example. How about this one? That's a little better. Open image in a new tab. There we go. Now you can see it. This is basically the application. This is a little bit out of date version. This is pretty much what I'm working with. Over half of all streamers use a program like this to record their gameplay and put it up to Twitch, if you guys didn't already know that. There's lots of ways to control this other than using like your keyboard and computer. The most popular way is to use, or I guess the most like professional way I'll say, is to use a what's that thing called? Like gamepad. It's like a keyboard with screens on it. I can't remember what it's called. The other way, I'll remember that in like 20 minutes probably. The other main way that people like control it is with their built-in app, which I actually have right here on my phone, along with notifications from Twitter, sorry, and Netflix. All right, so this is their app, what they've made. And you can see on here we have I'm recording it. Save replay. I have it set up for like 45 seconds or 30 seconds, and then in the stream from here, and then all these first buttons from about starting soon down to where you see webcam are all the different scenes you can possibly or that you have set up with your thing. So for example, if we just wanted to do my just me is when I'm talking to you guys. Hey, this is just me. I'm just me right now. I call the screen we're in right now Android Studio, which I actually use the same capture card for Xbox as I do this. While I'm working with Android Studio, I want my camera in the bottom right, so I just put it like in a separate scene. So if I switch to Xbox, you guys can see like I'm just up at the top left. This would be right above the Halo radar, and it would, this is the normal gameplay you guys see Tuesday through Thursday night. And if I switch to intermission, you can see the computer's in the bottom left here. I think this is the left for you. Might be the right. And this is all being controlled from this app. Pretty easy. But there are some things I wish it could do better. So let's switch back to Android Studio. The main is that like I have to look down and read through those in order to figure out which one I actually want to click. And that's right away, like that's really annoying. That I sometimes spend like 20 seconds because I'm not a very good reader, and that text doesn't show up that well. I don't know which one to do. So one of the first things I want to change is to put in settings to where users can set the color of what each of these buttons would be, so that I just can know ahead of time, like, okay, I'm going to Xbox. Xbox is green. I hit the green one. That's easy. I don't have to look that long for that. The other thing I want to mess with is the size. So this has a size adjustment. That's what this plus and minus is. Press minus, you can see like absolutely everything on here, and now you can even see that I have like my mic. So if I click this, I'm muted. I guess I have to actually click on my phone. Now I'm unmuted. Hopefully that made sense to you guys. And I can also like turn off my webcam from there. I get that those are needed in a total list like this, but in our version, I think we're gonna select let the user choose like a select few that it can go to. And same with the scenes too. We're gonna have like a navigation scheme where from Xbox, maybe the only places you can go is like intermission, back soon, or like maybe just me, and then stream done. And that'd be the only places you can go from Xbox. So the rest of those would just go away because there's no point in having them. And that would allow us to make them bigger and order them in a certain way. Like when we're on Xbox, Xbox intermission could be the biggest option, because if I'm playing Xbox, the main one I'm going to hit will be Xbox intermission. And it could be just a single button that flips over and turns to Xbox for me to flip back to it. Hopefully that makes sense. Doesn't have to yet, because we're not going to get anywhere near that point today. But I did want to start off kind of describing the app that I want to make. So let's get started. I think the first thing I'm going to want to do, well, first we can start our app. We did this last time too. Start a new Android project. Do another empty activity one. And the application is going to be below. That sound weird? Let me know, either in the chat or if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments below, if this is a terrible name. We can change it anytime we want. And that's a plan place. We'll do Kotlin. Pretty sure 15 is fine. We might run into an issue and we can change that later. Leave it as that. Hopefully you guys can read it. Go ahead and run this, make sure, I don't know, that it works. Like more often than not, we need to be running whenever possible. Especially since I figure at some point I'll just have like a certain stream where I'll go over writing tests. But until then, and just in general, because this is like a side project and not anything I necessarily plan to deploy to the Play Store or anything, I'm not going to lean too heavily on tests, which means we're going to have to run it a lot to make sure things are actually working. And yay, it does. Flow for slobs. Hello world. Where do I want to get started? Honestly, I think I want to start with handling the JSON stuff. This is what we're looking for. This is not what we were looking for. I feel like they like hide the documentation. Hey, we found it. Alright, so when you actually go to control Streamlabs, this is where you control it from. So, or not necessarily, but this is like the JSON you'd be sending. And they use JSON RPC 2.0, which confused the heck out of me. The first time I read this, I was like, what am I getting myself into? Go to specification. This is like, honestly, just looking at this documentation is my best bet at actually describing it to you guys. So, I'll leave it in here. So, start with the request object. Just like normal, using JSON with a RESTful server, we're gonna use like just normal HTTP post, but instead of like using post get or like delete or any of those, it will always be a post. And then inside of there, we will define methods that we'll call to basically call those methods with parameters on the server. It's a very different way of thinking of stuff. Instead of like sending them like info and then like the server responding accordingly, we almost think of it as like another object at our dispose to call methods on and functions on. I hope that makes somewhat sense. But inside of every single request object, we'll have a JSON RPC, which we'll always have defined as 2.0. We'll have the method, which will just be a string containing the method name that we're going to call. and then we'll have parameters if the method has parameters, and then those will either be in a list, in an ordered list, I presume, or they'll actually be like an array object where each item is named. And I'll show you how we can do either way coming up. And then there's an ID. So the ID is mostly so that you can send an entire list of method calls at once and get all the responses when they're ready, as they're ready, and kind of do things more asynchronously that way. We never will. The API that we're going to use or the library we're going to use to talk to the server, right now at least, is asynchronous, or not asynchronous, it's synchronous, which means we can only do one at a time, and so the ID is always set, but we're never using it. It's just kind of ignored. And then so basically the main things that we care about is the method name and the parameters that we send with it. Then once we send it to the server, it will respond with an object, and it'll also contain that same JSON RPC. The result will be, if nothing goes wrong, at least it'll hold a result saying like the JSON object that we expect to come back. This would be like if we called a GET on an HTTP or on a RESTful server. If we called a GET on a RESTful server, the response we'd get back would be what we'd expect to be just in this result body, inside of the overall response. Otherwise, we'll get an error. These are mostly defined within JSON RPC. You can see down here there's like a error object that'll be like a code and a message and some data. I don't expect us to have to worry about this too much, honestly. We'll just ignore most errors or treat all errors the same. At least I'm assuming that's what we're going to do. And then finally, there's an ID to make sure that we have the correct response to go to the correct request. We're going to ignore that because we're only going to be sending one at a time, so it'll be fine. That was a lot of information. I hope that somewhat cleared you guys. GitHub. Alright, this is the library we're going to use to make the JSON call, or the JSON RPC calls. That's really hard to say. We're just going to start saying server calls or something from now on. I don't know. This, full disclosure, is written by me. I wrote it preparing for this stream because I thought it didn't really pertain too much to writing Android, and I didn't want to go through the trouble of like testing things and making sure it was going to work and all that on stream. This is just going to be a kind of nasty experience in general, and it was pretty nasty, honestly. But it works, and we can just use this code ourselves. We're going to include it using Jetpack, which can basically grab any GitHub repo and include it into your Android project, which is pretty handy. Let's see if we can kind of show you the gist of how it works. Yeah, I wrote this and I already forgot what's all in here. Basically, we will define an interface, and it'll be, maybe we should start with this. Alright. So, yeah, the examples here, get a list of scenes is probably how we'll start with this. So we'll have an interface for the entire API, and one of the methods on it will be get scenes. And then it'll have that method will have a parameter on it that is just named resource, and then it'll be scene service. And then that's going to look like on the Java side, or on the Kotlin side, like this, where instead of calculator we'll have the API, then here will be like get scenes, here we'll have scene source, and then the string value resource, and we'll name it string source and call it, and then every time we call that method, like we would here, we'll actually get the answer. Here, there's a lot of mumbo jumbo for calculator. I hope it makes sense. Of it could be like this server being a calculator, we'll call subtract on it, give it the variables for subtracting, and the server side will actually subtract those numbers and return it as an 8 in this call object. I'm glossing over a lot of this, but we're about to code using it, so I'm not too worried. Copying the Jetpack IO part. That's the first thing we're going to add to our Git, or our Gradle. There we go. Add that, and I'm also going to switch. I kind of mentioned this before. Switching it to project, which would have helped me from making that. And then under dependencies, implement this app. You can ignore most of the things we're including here. None of it really matters. I think the version is just 010. Nope. Gonna go ahead and sync now. Hopefully that works. It didn't work. Figured it out, guys. I looked back and saw all projects and I put it in the wrong one. We don't know that for build script. Sure, yep. Well, that was an embarrassing mistake. I do think Jetpack takes a while to build. The first time, because it'll cache after this, but right now it's literally downloading that repo, building it, and then adding that to our Gradle cache. So this is going to take a while. In the meantime, I'm going to start looking at what we're going to be doing. I want to start with scene service. So I think that Streamlabs kind of fudges a little bit with the normal JSON RPC structure, where normally what we would do is we'd have it like our url.com. Well, let's just say Streamlabs to make more sense. .com/ and then the next part would be like the class name. So like we have scene service as the class name, and then it'd be on this URL that we would send our HTTP call. Instead, it seems like they do everything at the base level, like their server level, and just send the stream service as a parameter in their method call. We're going to try and kind of like hack around it so that we'll make classes that are actually the scene service class with all these methods on it. But we won't. Oh, accessors, methods. That's interesting. We'll make basically an interface with all these. But when it actually gets implemented, it'll have to send scene service as a variable every time, which is going to be annoying. Very annoying. Oh. I haven't looked this deeply into it in a while. I didn't know there are all these like observable types. Could be interesting. I think we're going to do mostly the methods, it looks like. So maybe we'll just start with the methods. String ID, get scenes. Yeah. Okay. This build. do that, we're gonna want a new package for our code to go into. We have this base one where all of well, right now our activity is. We'll probably put most of our UI in there. I personally would prefer like a feature based package system where like we would have like, I don't know, all the scene getting in one side or in one package. But because really our app is only going to have like 2 screens, like one to set up the main screen and then the main screen, and then it'll only have like, I guess also the login ish. I don't see a huge reason to split it up that way. And then also if we start having like people watching the stream contribute, I think having it separated the way we're going to will lower the chances of conflicts on GitHub, which we're not even on GitHub yet, but that'll be next week's episode. I think we'll push it up to GitHub. The new package network. I'm just gonna leave it network and maybe do another package inside of this for models. Cool. And here, interface, scene service. When you look back at this, oh, I'm glad I came in to copy and paste this. Scenes with an S service. Cool. Then these are going to be create scene. Look how they're kind of like defined in Kotlin here. I've never noticed that before. That's basically like the way you would define it in Kotlin. Just to put fun in front of it. This would be easy. Fun. Based. Oh, but we need a scene object. Unit. You do. Nailed it. Create scene. I don't know how much creating we're going to do in the app, but we can go ahead and add the method. Get scene. We'll do the same thing. Get scenes. This is not in Kotlin. Or not even close, at least. One. Oh. Make scene active. I wonder if this is how we, like the method we call to actually set Streamlabs to view this one. I would bet so. Too many O's. Nailed it. And last one. Remove string returns scene model. An interface. Weird. All right. Next, we want to create the scenes so that we don't have those two dudes everywhere. I think the best way to do that is this looks like a link. I'm just gonna command click it. And now we have a scene. Alright, so presumably it'll return a scene as a JSON object. We want this to be like, what's the word I'm looking for? Deserializable. This is that same get scenes example. And so we can kind of see what we get back when we ask for a scene. This is the scene we're actually going to define in our Kotlin. Alright, we'll copy this to start off our JSON scene that we're going to get back. Network. I didn't realize I named this models. We'll rename that later. I'm gonna do a package. Name that responses. Responses. Should packages be plural? What do you think? I'm going with plural today. I'll probably come up with a really good reason not to later. Did I spell that right? SCE. Yeah, we don't want plural. Right, we're gonna comment up at the top that JSON we found. That way we can define our class accordingly. We'll do a data class. So there is a underscore type. I hate when there's underscores in names, but luckily Kotlin can do underscores. It looks to be a type string. Resource. Oh. I'm just gonna copy this. I can't see the types. Resource ID, which is another string. And then LID, string again, go figure. String. And active, oh. Item array, but I'm not sure what of. I'm going to guess string because it's IDs and the ID was a string. Also can't help but notice that the resource ID is just whatever it is wrapped up in its ID. I'm assuming that that'll be consistent. Let's do it as a list. Cool. Now we can go back to our models, which is a terrible name. I meant to do package models. And then we're going to rename this to be not models, but scenes service. Scene service. That looks right, right? and we're going to move it. Oh, did we lose that package? Oh, it's in responses. Whoops. I'm gonna move it out to here. Okay. Do refactor. Okay. Then we'll take scene service and move it into models. Refactor. Blah blah blah. Cool. So here we'll have all of the different models that we can call to the API defined. So there will be just a plain scene up here as well, I think. I think we'll have to. I'm not sure how we're going to define that though. So confusing since they named them the same thing. But for now, we'll just do this. Get rid of all these to-dos. Replace. Oh, if that one didn't count. Boolean, and we need to look up what this iScene model thing. And scene. Look at that. And scene. I'm sorry. I'm also starting to lose my voice a little bit. I might switch to well, let's make sure it compiles. Does it compile? It does. Not. Well, that was a little weird. Thanks for watching. The ending seems weird. That's because it totally was. I don't know what happened to the rest of it. There was another like 20-30 minutes of coding, and it's none of it got recorded. So I'll have to do like a little show and tell in the next stream, I guess. If you have any questions on this video, feel free to leave a comment below or something. Link in the description to my Twitch if you want to come help me out. I stream most weeknights, and hopefully better recording. So, alright, see you in the next one.